Content warning. The following show contains smoking, some potty mouth language, discussions of fictitious violence, and a lot of subjects that's going to hit people in the feels really hard. We've got a heavy one today. But know this, you're not being attacked. You just might be a lot like me. But with all that, viewer discretion is advised. Well, that's one way to do a content warning. You know, I'm trying to be a whole lot. All right. Well, let's you gonna start the music? Yeah, I'm gonna start the music. All right. Let's make that happen. Hey everybody, what is the word? What is going on? How you doing? How you feeling? How are you out there? This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and I am coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. I'm looking at my thing right now, and it looks like my mic is not just hot, but it's hot, hot, hot. Anyway, welcome to the dark side of the room. This is the show where we talk about games, life, hobbies, with a whole bunch of outdated 90s and early 2000s references, because I am not just a dad full of dad jokes. I am an old man who has been working hard, and I don't keep up with all the other stuff. So, welcome. Now, before we get started, I want to say thank you guys. That's right, we're super green. Super green. Super green. Super green. All right, so with all that being said, I want to thank everybody who is here today to watch the show. Now, let me just get all these announcements and all that jazz out of the way. If you guys have questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to hit me up on, well, pull out your keyboard and type in back in the deck at gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK at gmail.com. You can also hit me up at Twitter at back in the deck, Instagram at back in the deck. No, I'm not calling it X yet, okay? I will respect pronouns. I will respect what people want to be called, but company rebranding from a freaking egocentric dude that made his money by hurting people that look like me, I'm going to take my time with that. You can also reach out to me on TikTok or the Clock app at BidP, that's BIDPY. Of course, if you are part of that wretched hive of scum and villainy known as Facebook, then join Deckers on the Book and see what the other Deckers out there are making, what we're playing, how we're doing stuff, yada, yada, and yada. And of course, guys, if you guys don't have time to watch this loud, okay, I will tell you this. If you guys don't have time to see us live while we're broadcasting, well, you can always subscribe here at twitch.tv/BID_P and check the show out after, like one of our ride or die deckers from the land of milk and cheese. If you know, or should I say the land of beer and cheese? But you know where that is out there. But if y'all don't have time to do all that stuff, or be like, you know what, I don't want to do on Twitch and all that stuff, it's just full of people playing video games and talking about stuff that I don't care about, that's fine, because you can listen to this podcast. Oh my God, what? You can listen to it while painting your miniatures or working on your illustrations or freaking vacuuming your floor. Yes, you can listen to it on Spotify and SoundCloud, and I think Apple Podcast or anywhere else that you get your podcast. What? Now, I'm going to put out the very last thing. If you get value out of what we do here, then be part of HBO. That's the Help a Brother Out organization. And do a couple of things. You can hit us with a direct donation if you don't want to subscribe, because let's face it, Netflix, Hulu, AMC Plus, Paramount, MGM, all those other places that give a whole lot more content than I do because they have billions of dollars. So if you just want to like buy me a cup of coffee or slide me a 20 every once in a while, you can use the donation tag right here. All right, but if you've got, let's say, $5 that you can throw at me every month, then head on over to Patreon. I'm working on some stuff to put up there. Specifically, our new show, Happy With It, which is my painting tutorial show. And of course, grab yourself a coffee mug or a t-shirt or something down at our merch store, which is the third link right there. Just go to tpublic.com and look for Back in the Deck. That's BID_P, or hit that link right there. And of course, you can join our Discord. What? Yes, I have a Discord that's not connected to the Patreon because I don't like paywalls. I don't like people being stuck behind paywalls when it comes to making new friends. And of course, Neon is going to pop that up there as soon as he gets around to it. Finally, one more announcement, and this is part of the HBO crew, all right? Because the HBO crew, Help a Brother Out. What does that mean? That means with all the content that's out there, if you know a creator of color, i.e. somebody that has a tan kind of close to mine, then help a brother out. All right, help a brother out by subscribing to their channel, leaving a like and subscribe and all that stuff. Like here at Nerd Soul, that's NERDSOUL, bringing your street geek and nerd soul. This is a dude I do podcasts with every single week, and he just put up his review for Equalizer 3 starring Denzel Washington. All right, he's just starring Denzel Washington out there beating up a whole bunch of people who like beating up on little guys. If you're thinking about going to see it but you don't know because due to the writer's strike, hey yo people, nobody's doing any advertisement. So if you want to see what some people think about it, the way we did back when I was growing up, yo man, did you see that new Denzel movie? Yeah. Well, what's up? Oh, bro, Denzel was coming in and he was like, I'm just gonna be talking like your uncle right there when he's telling you that you're grilling that steak for a little too long. Then I'm gonna shoot up a bunch of people and tell you to turn over them steaks because you're burning it. That's what you're gonna do. So head on over to Nerd Soul right here. So now that we got all that stuff going, we gonna be here for a little bit, guys. I want to thank you guys. There we go. All right, so now I have lowered the musical volume and all that jazz, so do all that stuff. Thank you, we got you. Major thanks to Anonymous Donor for gifting so many subscriptions on Tuesday. Thank you so much for all of those subscriptions that you put out there. A lot of you guys are going, wait, I subscribed to this channel? Yes, someone donated like 10 gift subscriptions. And if you're willing to subscribe here and didn't get one of those, look, I get it, like I said, about the Netflix and the Amazon and the MD. You know what? Poke the man in the eye. All right, that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna tell y'all, I was at a convention a couple of weeks ago, or actually it's been more like a month, and there was a street preacher. And you know what? I'm all about live and let die. I'm like, you guys, you do your own thing. But he triggered me, y'all. He triggered me. I was just crossing the street, and there's a street preacher talking about the Bible and all that stuff. But you know what he did to trigger me? He's like, the devil walks among us and the devil speaks. And he talked to Joe Biden. And I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to start counter preaching. So I'm going to preach to y'all today. I said, I'm going to preach to y'all today. You see, there is a devil in the world. Okay, there is and you know what? That devil talks to me every day through my glowing triangle, almost like I'm speaking to you right now. But you know what the devil says to me? That devil looks at me and says, hey, you know what? You sorcerer, you cinematic guy, I'm going to say, I'm going to say something to you, and I'm going to say something to you right now because I am the devil and I know what really pulls at your strings. And you know what the devil said to me? That devil looked at me and it said, free shipping with $25 or more. And I said, be gone, Satan. So what I want y'all to do right now, I want y'all to open up your Twitch account and poke that devil in the eye by using that devil's money to subscribe to this channel. Just use your Amazon Prime subscription to Twitch and have that bald-headed devil that makes his own spaceships pay for your subscription to this channel. That's what I would like you to do. I want you to poke the devil in the eye by using his money to subscribe right here. All right, that's about as much of that as I can do. That's about it. As you know, I'm a little more awake today, and feel free to keep going. But you know what? I'm hurting because I'm expecting like a hallelujah or something from Leon Arlecchino. So yeah, I mean, seriously. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just subscribe to this channel with your Amazon Prime subscription. That way, you're going to be using Jeff Bezos' money and not your own. All right. So, I would say join the HBO crew and help a brother out like that. And why am I getting silly? Because today, all right, bro. Thank you so much for the gifted subscription, Knights of G. All right, I was about to call you Knights of OG. And thank you so much for gifting the tier 1 subscription. That is what I'm talking about. Let us be a community. Let us support each other. All right, that is some real stuff. Thank you so much for being here and for helping a brother out. All right. All right. Yeah, Knights of OG. So, now that we getting on this, yeah, today is going to be a heavy one because this is going to be an episode where y'all learn a little bit more about me, especially for you newer guys out there. Now, for the record, since I am not a man who keeps any secrets, all right, number one, I am 46 years old. Some people look at me, they're like, what? You can't be that close to you just look so good. I'm like, yeah, I don't grow gray hair. I grow blue hair. Okay. You know that whole, your old blue haired granny? Well, my granny's hair was actually fucking neon blue. All right. And if you guys are wondering why I just dropped an F-bomb, I found out that YouTube essentially makes my stuff rated R for smoking on camera. So I don't get monetization over there. So you know what? I'm going to try and keep this family friendly. However, I am an adult and I don't believe that kids should be sheltered from adults as they are, unless they're garbage people, and you know what kind of garbage people I'm talking about. So, as you guys know, I'm 46 years old. That means I was born in the late 1970s. I am from South Central Los Angeles. All right. South Central, okay, the home of gangster rap, all right? And why is that? Because we had a whole bunch of gangsters. I grew up in the 19th. Yes, I am old enough to be a grandfather, and my offspring does not plan on breeding because of our current economy and the fact that it costs $15,000 for someone to even have a child. And I'm literally talking the medical bills of going into labor. All right. So, but I am old enough to be a grandpa. I got a lot of great nieces and nephews, that kind of thing. But I grew up in a time of actual gunfights on the streets. The police had something called the battering ram, where it was essentially a tank, like a rhino from Warhammer 40K, that they used to drive through people's living rooms under the suspicion of having drugs. Okay. And I mean, that's real talk. That is my childhood. Okay. I have survived 6 school shootings with people coming into the school and blasting. You know, so I grew up in a weird time. Just look, I mean, real talk, guys, the Rodney King riots of 1992 started at my literal auntie's house. Okay. I'm not pulling up the footage. I don't want to relive all that stuff. I did do a show a few years ago showing what my neighborhood was like before, during, and after. All right? Now, a lot of people know about the violence, but they don't know about the disenfranchisement. Okay? So, we didn't have the best teachers. We had really good teachers, but we also had really terrible teachers, because if you spend years getting good at your craft, would you take half pay? Well, the fact of the matter is a lot of teachers did. A whole lot of teachers did. And I'm not going to name them by name because I don't want their information to be out there on the internet, but I will say this. Manchester Elementary, Bret Hart Middle School, John Adams Junior High, y'all know who you are. Okay? And I will still rant about y'all to this day. They were the best. They had the best and most influential teachers on me that I've ever had. Okay? But let's talk about the bad ones. Not just the bad teachers in school, but the ones that might have been in our families, in our houses, and in the world in between school and home. Okay? Because this is where a lot of our mental blocks come from. Now, when I was growing up, I was given a lot of gatekeeping. Okay? You don't get the right to this title until you achieve X. Okay? However, that goalpost was constantly pushed. And it was pushed from the standpoint of, one, you know what color your skin is. Two, you're a kid. What would you know? And three, well, this is what I've always been taught, and I'm a woman or a person of color or a woman of color that grew up in the 1950s, or in my case, in the early 1900s. And I'm talking about like 1902, 1903, and on through all that stuff. So that comes with a lot of trauma and a lot of barriers to learning. Okay? Now, I have crippling ADHD. All right? And that got in my way when I was a kid in school. All right? Because on one level, I had what was known as a gifted folder. Okay? That meant I was diagnosed as a genius when I was in the first grade. So, yeah, I was smart. However, I also have attention deficit disorder, or, ADHD, because I'm an adult now. Back then I was just hyperactive. That's what we called it, And these are the days before Ritalin and medication and even diagnosis. So it was, you're not having a problem concentrating, you just don't care. Or when I was learning to be a musician, I had accelerations in certain places. I had barriers to entry in others. And every piece of difficulty I was taught, or that I had, was automatically assumed to be a failure of character or a failure of morality. I know I'm hitting a lot of y'all pretty hard because I know I'm not alone in this, right? And here was the thing. Over the course of my life, starting in junior high, because my algebra teacher was honestly one of the best teachers I have ever met in my entire life. And I say this with 3 undergrad degrees, which means I spent a lot of time in college. All right. But, or uni, if you guys aren't in the US. But that teacher was part of a program called Mentor Teachers, which was a program that taught teachers how to teach. And that blew my mind. I'm like, wait, you have to learn how to teach? I thought you just knew. You knew that, you went to school for years and years and years and years and years to learn the subject that you're teaching. And then once you know the subject, you transfer that and you do what was done. And she let me know, no, teaching is a skill. It is a skill that they have to cultivate. And even when they cultivate those skills, it takes teachers that have been doing it for a while, that are good at what they do, to show the new teachers how to do it properly so that the new teachers can give the most to their students and they don't have to spend that time and energy reinventing the wheel. And I'm going, wow, just I don't use the meme because it's too much to pull up, but you know that meme from Tim and Eric, that was so my head, and this was 20 something years before Tim and Eric. All right, so I got my hands on some of her notes and I got some of the basics down. This is one of the reasons that I'm a decent teacher today, and I say decent because part of being a good teacher is recognizing students. And a lot of students, especially the ones that grew up where I grew up with, didn't have access to something until they got to college, if they lived that long and had that much money. And what is it that they didn't have access to? They didn't have access on the skill set of learning. Okay? We didn't know how to learn, and we had a lot of teachers that didn't know how to teach. This is one of the things that comes from not having a big budget, all right? And the thing is, today in the 21st century, we're very individualized. This is how I learn. This is how I this. This is how I that. This is how I this. Everything has to be catered to me as I am right now, period, or it's not going to get through. And as someone who's been teaching for a very long time, and teaching a great many things, from dance to martial arts to gameplay and to teaching how to learn, I'm going to let you guys know that that's not true. All right. And this is what we're going to be getting into today. All right. Now, I want you guys to know that there are 4 major things on learning and teaching. And I want you guys to think about this and internalize this, because it will help you in the future when it comes to your painting, your modeling, your storytelling, your character creation. Everything involved in the skill sets that you want to do fall under these categories. Okay, so this is big, and I ain't gonna lie, I'm loving that I can do this now, having reduced the amount of days that I do broadcast to 3, because now I can do longer shows with a lot more preparation. All right. Now, there are 4 pillars, and we're going to go through them one at a time. There is the first pillar that I just kind of touched on, which is how folks think they learn. Now, we know that there are peer-reviewed studies out there talking about the different techniques that people learn. Like, some people learn interactively, some people learn well with lectures, some learn well with pictures, some learn well in the field. Okay, and this is very true and peer-reviewed. All right, so I'm gonna start that part out by saying, yeah, this is out there, this is true, but this is where people start to stumble. Okay, the way that you are best at learning something is not the only way that you are limited to learning at all. I will repeat that. The way that you are best at learning something is not the way that you are limited to learning at all. Okay? What do I mean? I've had people tell me, I'm a visual learner. And so since they are a visual learner, they interact with me as though it is impossible for them to learn unless they can see it. Like, they're talking to me as though their brains are completely incapable of visualization. And this falls directly into our category of mental blocks. Okay? And I'm dead serious, guys. I will tell you, I myself excel at practical learning. I look at something, I test it. One of the reasons that I did so well in my physics courses is because we had a lab. I could see the thing, I could test the theory within a model, and I could understand it very quickly. But that did not mean that I was incapable of ingesting information from lecture. It was a little more difficult, yes. It was a little more difficult. But it was not impossible. All right? So the way that people think they learn tends to revolve around which way is easiest and fastest for them to do it. However, the easiest or most efficient way to do something is not the only way that exists in the entire universe on how to do something. Okay? Seriously speaking, the easiest and most efficient way to cook a piece of meat is in the microwave. You throw it in, you push a button, you walk away, you come back, and it's done a lot faster than if you put it in the oven, put it on the griddle, or barbecue it. Okay? It will be cooked and digestible, even if it doesn't taste good. Still, the body will be able to process it much better than if that piece of meat were cooked or were not cooked at all. That is the most efficient way to do so. However, is it the only way to cook a piece of meat? No. I just mentioned 3 others. Pan frying, baking it, and barbecuing. All right? Let's be real about that. Or should I say grilling, because barbecuing requires smoke, and I don't really want to get into it with all the people on that. All right? But see, the mental block, deep fried. Yeah, deep fried. So one of the things I want to get into about this is, well, if a person believes that they learn one particular way, that in and of itself is a mental block. It is a barrier. Because instead of interacting with the teacher or the information, they are psychologically interacting with the fact that this is not the way they learn. So you're going on that path mentally of ingesting information, but then you leave and go, I don't learn this way. Why is it blah, 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 that I'm not learning this way? They don't see that I learn this, that I don't learn this way, all this other stuff. Instead of spending the same amount of energy that you would spend focusing on, or that you are spending on that mental block, on paying attention and learning. Now, what I just said sounds simple. Not easy. And again, crippling ADHD. All right? And how long have I had it? It is so generational. I used to laugh at my mom losing things while never getting up from the sofa. I'm like, how do you lose the remote control to the television? You haven't moved. You haven't gotten up. And I'm coming to find out that that is a symptom of ADHD. All right. So, and it happens to me to where I curse my mother's ailment in order to find something. I'm like, oh, where'd I put that there? Damn, my mother's curse. You guys have seen me do it here on the channel if you're a regular viewer. Okay. So when it comes to that in and of itself is a mental barrier, and these mental barriers can creep up on you. All right. The second is something I touched on a little earlier. How trained is an individual person in the skill of learning itself? Now, there are so many different techniques to learn. Okay? So many different techniques. And most of us get caught in this cycle of this is how I learn because we've only practiced one major technique most of the time because of the barrier of the aforementioned this is how I learn barrier. Okay? But not gonna lie. As people in the United States become adults, it's told, there is some neurological studies that say the brain is less elastic and all this other stuff. And it's true. Okay? It is true. It is more difficult to learn as an adult biochemically than it is when you're 5. Okay? However, let's keep it 100. All right, let's be real. One of the major reasons that most adults have a difficult time learning is because in our culture, I'm talking the United States and the UK and a lot of Europe, there is this idea that once you become an adult, you have already learned everything that you need to learn. Like, you're done developing. And if by the time we're in our 40s, we think, well, this is how I learn, there is a barrier, partly of ego and partly of tradition, that gets in the way of learning anything else. Now, one of my favorite cultures to study are the Vikings, okay? Or specifically, the cultures of Denmark and Norway, because Viking was a job title. All right, it's like calling every American a sailor. No, all right, but the ancient Danish and the ancient Norse have a saying that sums up to call no man happy till he dies. Okay, and what that means is that a person is not done becoming the person that they will be until they are done living. Did you live a good life? Don't know. Still living it. You know, have you learned everything you want to know? Don't know. Still alive. Ask me when I no longer have the opportunity to do so. And I hold on to that pretty tight. I love that, because it means the me that I am is not the me that I'm going to be tomorrow. Just like the you that you are is not going to be the same you tomorrow. Even watching this right now, you are changing. Hopefully you're learning something. So, given that teaching is a skill set, learning is also another skill set. And the number one thing that gets in the way of acquiring the skill to learn, or honing the skill to learn, is the Western cultural tradition that states, I no longer have to learn, therefore I am finished. And when I say have to, that means I'm no longer required to be in school. When in our daily lives, learning sneaks up on us, where we have to learn a different job skill for our job. And we do have those moments when we get a new job and we have to be trained in the way that that job or that company does the job that you've been hired on to do, even if you've got 30 years experience. 'Cause I've been doing this for 30 years, blah, blah, blah. But you still have to learn their way. And if you guys are out there working, y'all have already thought about that guy in the office. You know who I'm talking about. Okay, the person who thinks that they're done because they've been doing it for 30 years, regardless of the fact that the world, the field, and the technology has changed. Okay? One thing I have to admire are doctors. In the sense of the longer that a doctor works, they have to constantly take classes on new discoveries and new techniques so that they don't accidentally kill somebody with an outdated medical technique. You dig? But in order to do that, they have to be skilled at learning. And what does that mean? Well, let's go back to our first point. Our first point of how folks think they learn. Every technique of learning, experiential, lab, lecture, audio, visual, or visualizing, every single one of those ways of learning is a different skill. And all skills have one thing in common, which is the more you practice it, or the more that you do it, the better you get at it. Okay? When I first started doing painting tutorials here, I was okay. However, every time I painted a new army for a video or a broadcast that you guys have shown, my technique jumped up a little. And I didn't even plan on learning how to get better. I just kept doing stuff. So when it comes to learning, the more we do the thing, the easier the thing that we're doing becomes. But know this. The same applies for adhering to mental blocks. Okay? The more we put our foot down, that's just the way I am, to end the conversation and to not push the envelope and watch it bend, the easier it becomes to not push that envelope. I'm not even saying the heavier that the envelope becomes, but the easier it gets to just not push. Okay? Every single one of us here are nerds in one way, shape, or form. I don't care if you're a literary nerd, a creative nerd, a nerd that's into visual art, or games, be it video games or whatever. But video games are a great example. Let's take the game that publicly and knowingly takes a whole bunch of practice, and it's not really a question if you've ever heard of the game, Dark Souls. Okay? That is just a hard game that gets easier the more you play it. Okay? The more you apply bonuses to your characters, the more you practice your shading with a number 2 pencil versus a number 5 pencil. The more you practice getting your lines right, or having a steady hand when you're painting your miniatures. Or in my case, the more I dry brush, the better we get at it. Yeah, Struggle Bus, the game you call Dark Souls. Exactly. However, that struggle becomes less and less the more you do it, the more times you face that boss. And it's easy to look at the why something gets easier to discount the fact that it does get easier. Well, you eventually learn the patterns and blah, 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 blah. That too is a mental block. Knowing why does not invalidate, okay? Because it still gets easier. Yes, the more you do things, the more that you learn. And if you're very aware, if you do it with intention, the more things that you see. And the intention is one of the pathways through the mental blocks. But let's get to the third part, okay? Because the third one, the last two are heavy, all right? Feel free to type in your questions, by the way. I will happily answer questions. The third one is huge. And this one has almost as much bearing on every single person living in the United States as it did 110 years ago. You ready for this? Are you ready? Take a breath. Make a wish. Count to 3. The third pillar that determines or that teaching or learning how to learn has got to overcome is past trauma directly related to learning. Okay, I saw a couple of y'all cringe out there. Okay. I've said this on the show a few times before. All right? A couple of times before. I've said this on the show. But I'm going to share something that I think a lot of us have in common. There was a phrase that honestly used to psychologically trigger me to the point where I wanted to throw my singular student fitting desk at bad teachers. And you know what that phrase was? What do you mean you don't know? Said in that way and sometimes at that volume. I hated hearing that. Because here I am as a kid. Okay? I might have been absent from school that day. I grew up in hell. All right? I was reminded that I used to go to my best friend's house just to sit on the porch and not be in my own home. Okay? I grew up with narcissists and bullies to the point where if y'all watch The Wire season 4, if we're gonna play that game of who would you be in season 4 with the kids, I was Dookie. All right. I had a brother that would laugh at me and make fun of me or slap the book out of my hand when I was studying, but I also had a mom that would beat the crap out of me for not studying. Yeah, If you're saying Knights of OG or Knights of G, yeah, I told you I ain't got secrets and I ain't ashamed of my past. All right, I'm being real. I am not Avon. I am not McNulty. I aim to be Lester one day, but fact is, yeah, I was Dookie. Okay, I grew up in a terrible environment. I had, those kids are archetypes, so we all have a little bit, but Duquan was the one that hit me hardest. All right, when I would get home and I would try and study, yeah, I would either be made fun of, beaten up, or my books would be slapped out of my hands and taken by my older brother because my mom was asleep because she worked graveyard shift and my great grandparents were in their 90s. All right, because they were born in 1892 and 1895. So by the 1980s, they'd broken their hips more times than the Bulls broke records for dunking. All right, that's what happened. All right, or Michael Jackson, So yeah, yeah, the South Bronx is no joke, bro. Like seriously, no joke. But poverty is poverty. And disenfranchisement is disenfranchisement. That's why we're here. All right? So when my teachers would be like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, you don't know my life. I show up to work. I show up to school exhausted, falling asleep in class, sometimes having the crap kicked out of me before I went to school by my older brothers because of generational trauma that goes all the way back to the plantations of Alabama. This is real stuff. And a lot of, hey, Roland, I've been waiting for you to come back, bro. So the real talk is there's a lot of trauma that comes from learning when it comes to me studying stuff. And I will let you guys know, if you're new to the channel, learning is my number one hobby. Beyond miniatures, beyond role-playing games, I study. I like to learn stuff. I'm a curious man. I'm a very curious man. I don't say barbecue sauce when I'm about to win something. If you know, you know. But I see how big the world is and how small I am, and I want to know all of it. And I went to school for physics. I understand how big the universe is, and I want to know as much of it as I can before I shuffle off this mortal coil. Okay? But sit down, study, make better grades. That's what I was told. But the ADHD being looked at as a moral failing came with, if I beat you hard enough, you'll concentrate. And if I can't do it, then I'm just not trying hard enough. And again, generational curse. I don't want y'all to think that my family were terrible people. All right. But that mindset is very big in the black community. It's the, you don't get a childhood. We are going to beat you into strength so that when you go out into the world that's going to beat you, you will be tough enough to withstand it. Long story, I may write my autobiography as a series of fantasy novels, but yeah, you get what I mean. And the fact of the matter is, that's not a great way to teach, but the black community in the United States wasn't really taught how to teach well. We've spent hundreds of years having to reinvent the wheel. And being a cycle breaker is rough, okay? And again, this is why I'm here in front of you guys today. All right. So I have personal trauma over the course of my career as an independent teacher and a coach. I've come across a lot of people who have the pressure of, if I don't get this right, or if I don't get this perfect the first time, I'm a failure. I shouldn't be here. I've actually had someone tell me that getting anything wrong is proof positive. Okay? It is exemplary of the necessity of their own extermination. I BS you not. So, the traumas that we collect as children and as adults in regards to learning, because I'm going to put this out there for the women that are listening. the unfair standard, that they're held to when they're beginning something that's normally a male dominated thing. I've known so many women in science that had to prove that they knew what they were doing because they were women, which, scientifically speaking, they studied the same books, they listened to the same freaking lectures, they had the same labs, and a lot of the times they were more committed to doing it, so they were actually better than the people that were testing them. And all of that stuff just puts bricks in the backpack that we carry with, and a lot of that can reflect in how we learn. How many times have we come across people in learning a game where they felt that if they lost, even when they're trying to learn the rules, if they lost, that by definition makes them a loser, you know? And I'm sorry, one of my new major things is if you are holding the negative opinion of someone who talks like they're using an accordion mocking you, if that's your bellwether for whether or not you're worthwhile, pick a new metric. Okay? Sorry to say. So when it comes down to those things, these traumas that we have collected over the course of our lives can get in the way of our own learning, let alone the learning of the person that we are trying to share skills with. Now, I'm going to put this out there for a lot of my fellow men out there. And when I say men, I mean people that were raised in the patriarchy thinking that they have certain responsibilities to everybody because of what's in between their legs. Okay? Number one, when it comes to trauma of learning, one of the biggest traumas that are put on us is not just the expectation of immediate mastery, but also the expectation of immediate mastery coupled with the responsibility of passing on that knowledge and making sure that people do it right. Newsflash. It ain't your responsibility to teach people, bruh. All right. One of the biggest things I get into with a lot of my friends who are trying to heal from all this stuff, where they're like, yeah, I was making fun of that person because the world is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get where you're coming from and your heart's in the right place. But did they ask you to do that? Well, no. Did they ask for your guidance? No. Did you sit them down and come up with a contract for that kind of training? Well, no. Then it's not your freaking place. All right? And this is coming from a dude that's so didactic, he started his own podcast where he talks at you guys for 2 hours. All right? But understand, I recognize that this is my choice, and you guys tune in because you want to hear what I have to say. But nobody is obligated to freaking listen, let alone believe. So that's not my responsibility. But there is a trauma inside me that says save everyone. I had to laugh when my kid called me out on my Atlas complex. But the fact of the matter is, it's not my responsibility. It's not that kind of thing. So how do we navigate these particular traumas, being the Atlas complex, or the what do you mean you don't know, or the high expectations, or knowing that you are assumed to be lesser than because you are not like everyone else that's already there. We'll get to the how in the second hour. Now, this is the fourth part, and this is the biggest one. And when I say biggest, I mean most common. Okay? And that is, let's see. I thought from the thunderous roar of your voice at the start, you were a guide. You were a guide and gather a flock of believers. Well, I don't come out here wearing my robes and my wizard staff. They are off screen, but I don't come here wearing it. All right? And wizard, not cleric. All right? But that fourth part, that very fourth thing, the fourth archetype of barrier, and this is the biggest part, okay? Yes, I'm holding you guys on. Suspense is fantastic. Come for the mock preaching, stay for the mock suspense. The preconceived notion of what is actually being taught. That is a huge barrier to learning. Okay? Now, I know I use a lot of official sounding phrases. It's a thing. But let me explain what I mean by that statement, because y'all know I love context. When I was young, I started studying martial arts. Okay? For two reasons. One, I was really bad at street fighting, and I wanted an edge that the other people around me didn't know. And second, I watched a lot of movies. All right? And when I first got into a martial arts class, I thought I was going to be learning spin kicks, and it was the 80s, so ninjas back then were really big. Samurai came around in the 90s, but back in the 80s, ninjas, that was the whole thing. Black pajamas, face being covered, part of the reasons I wear turtlenecks. Running around like this. So yeah. I wanted to learn martial arts because of all the stuff I saw in the movies and with ninjas, curse you, Frank Miller, making ninjas so cool. Oh no, I'm talking pre-Ninja Turtles, dude. I'm talking Ninja Turtles actually brought about the death of ninjas being cool, because it wasn't about the fact that they were ninjas. It was about the fact that they were teenage turtles that happened to be ninjas. But anyway, I thought martial arts were like a type of magic. And I thought, I join a martial arts class, I'm going to get a montage, and I'm going to be running up trees, and my clothing was going to be making this noise. I thought that was totally going to be the thing of jumping through the air, going whoa, 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 whoa. And I would punch someone, and it would be like, whoosh, that kind of thing. I still thought that that's what it was going to be. And then I got into a martial arts class, and I had to do push-ups over and over and over and over while a smiling dude kept saying last 10. Sitting up, each knee, son, yo, go, ro, shi, hach, ku, ju, last 10. Yeah, he would do that 9 times. So I'm sitting up doing 100 freaking push-ups while every part of me was burning, and there was no music, there were no cutscenes. I thought I was learning how to do all that stuff, and the fact is I was. Okay? But I thought it was going to come quickly. I thought it was going to come cool. And the fact of the matter, was I had a preconceived notion of what martial arts was and what they were for. And when I got into the classes and I started learning what it was, I had to make a decision to either double down on what I thought it was, saying this isn't what Kung Fu is. Kung Fu is this, like I knew better. Or make the decision to take what I learned as it was. Okay? So we've now spent the past hour going over how folks think they learn, how trained they are in the act of learning, the traumas that they may have in regards to the act of learning, and finally, the conceived notion of what it is they're learning. Now, again, y'all know this is a gaming channel and all that stuff, so let's really go into it. That perceived notion, how many times have we tried to teach people games that we played, but people have this preconceived notion of a game is supposed to be quick, easy, and fun? And so when you sit them down to teach them, it turns out there's a textbook full of rules. That ain't quick. That ain't easy, because rule A is in combo with rule K, and rules A and K are canceled out by P and W, but you have to question whether or not that person has P and W, right? And there's people's preconceived notion. Now, I equate this to whenever to open whenever I open up um, Instagram to check out painting tutorials. And I see people I see people with their painting techniques. Oh yeah, no, we're just gonna do some line highlights, and they pull out a brush that only has 3 hairs on it, and they're operating, and they're doing these lines on this. Or they'll say, yeah, you want your paints the consistency of milk. What kind of milk? Whole milk? Skim milk? What do you mean the consistency? It's all just wet in my eyes. You see what I mean? But you see the effects they get, and then you see how many layers they're on. And this is from the fact that professionals make things look easy. Okay? Whenever you watch a sports ball game, or you're looking at one of those YouTube tutorials on how to play a musical instrument, and they pull out the guitar and they're like, all you got to do is the sweep picking and the hammer pulls, and you get, and now you try, and your fingers are like, nah, son, I ain't doing this. I don't even know what the timing back and forth, because it's built on years of building blocks to get to where they are. But then they talk to you like you're already on their level. Okay, so we sit down with, say, Warhammer 40K, and we want to act like we're in the battle report, but those people are going through so many factors that we don't even know about because we can't read their minds. But they have so much experience at the game that they're communicating silently with their opponent, and they make all the best moves, all the best strategies. They know exactly when to pull out the best stratagems and all that stuff. And you're going, why can't I do that? They make it look so easy. Just like the stuntmen in every Jackie Chan movie makes those moves look so easy. Just like Randy Rhoads, the former lead guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne, made all those riffs look so easy. And then you pick up your instrument, or you get on the table, and you don't make nearly the same decisions. And I noticed this when I was teaching War Machine to people, and I could look at the board and I knew what 8 inches looked like. Or I knew I could see 2 or 3 moves ahead because I knew what their army did and what the best route to success was. And I'm like, whoa, they don't know this. They haven't been studying the rules and playing these games for 10 years like I have, So this is what I'm talking about with the preconceived notion. A lot of us have preconceived notions of what a subject is based on what things we've seen, not realizing that the battle reports we see on YouTube's, the animations that we see from Disney, the songs that we hear on the radio, or on Spotify. I don't know where you guys are at. The painted miniatures that we see in catalogs, all those were done by people who have decades of experience. And when we enter something new, thinking that is how to do it, it gets discouraging because we don't see ourselves getting to that. So those thoughts, those old traumas, I suck. What do you mean you don't know? They're going to think black people don't play games. All that other jazz. Okay? That comes up. So, how do we get past those things? How do we get past those things? Well, let's take each point thing by thing by thing. Now, we talked a little bit about the first point, how folks think they learn. Now, having massive amounts of ADD, I understand the things that can distract me. Okay, I seriously do. Like, where's my lighter? Did I get where did I put my cup of coffee? Crap, did I change out that Keurig pod? Why am I saying all these things? Because these are things you guys have watched me do on the show. Okay? However, making the decision to focus on the task at hand is how to do it. Okay? A friend of mine from Vietnam explained to me what he was taught Zen was. And I'm like, I'm going to pass that on to you guys, okay? And how to apply it. He explained to me that Zen is accepting whatever is as it is, okay? So if you come from a rich family and you have a mansion, whatever. I live in a mansion, whatever. My bathroom has a shower that's bigger than some people's apartments, whatever. I lost all that. Now I have to poop in a hole because I live in a thatch hut, whatever. You know, and I'm like, really? And I'm like, well, that seems pretty detached and Zen. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Now, how does this apply to focusing? It's real simple. I can't do it. I'm scared. There's 100 people around me talking. There's a plane overhead. Blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff, whatever. I'm doing this. You know? We have all made those decisions. How do I know? Well, there are certain things that people have done over the course of their lives that required concentration in the moment and have terrible consequences for not having that concentration. Okay? It is, statistically speaking, really, really possible to understand that every single adult has driven a car, used a power tool, used a hammer, or used a stovetop. Okay? Now, when you drive, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm in LA, y'all. So when you drive, there's hundreds of drivers on the road around you at any given time. There could be a cop out to harass you. The other people driving in their cars could be distracted by their phone, dropping their cigarette or joint. They could have kids in the car. They could have a pet in the car that's running all over the place. And all of these things could directly affect you. However, you keep your eyes on the road and you get to your destination. And what happens when you don't? Chances are we've been in accidents. I know I've personally laid down my motorcycles about 5 times because I got distracted. However, when our lives are on the line, we concentrate. Not to say that act like your life is on the line all the time. That in and of itself is a special kind of trauma. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder. However, the fact that we can focus when we're afraid of consequences also means, by definition, that we can focus. All right? Again, simple. Not easy, simple. However, the more that we make that choice to concentrate, the easier it gets. And again, that ties into the last point of, well, I chose to concentrate and it didn't work. How many times have we been trying to learn something or teach something to someone and it didn't work out perfectly the first time the person tried it, so they or we write off that this new thing doesn't work, it wasn't going to work for us, blah, 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 blah. Or we're so committed to how we learn that we're unwilling to see any other way. All right? And that expectation of this is the magic bullet. All right? Or the silver bullet, rather. Now, I'm letting you guys know right now. And yeah, like I said, today's topic is going to poke at a few people. But I'm only betting that you guys are like me, and these are not just realizations that I had to come to, but thoughts that I have to remind myself all the time that there is no silver bullet. Okay? There really isn't a silver bullet. All right? There is not a thing that I'm going to do one time and magically be amazing at a game like Warhammer 40K. There's not one spell that I'm going to learn that will make D&D easy. Okay, there's not one singular thing that I can do one time, not one magic pill, not one magical plant, not one sacrificed goat, or one 15-minute phrase in Latin that I can spew to make me to make me expert at something that I just started. No, that spell is not fireball, regardless of what XP to level 3 says. Okay. Because real talk. Aha, well, we have to diplomatically solve this situation. I've got diplomacy. I cast fireball. That doesn't work for more than 2 games. you know. It's like, well, I cast fireball. You're negotiating with lava creatures, dude. That have, oh wait, immunity to fire. Look at that. Yeah, it worked for Manchester Black until it didn't. So there is no magic pill. There is no magic bullet. All right. And why is it that I'm looking for the magic bullet? Primarily because I get stuck on my own trauma of, if I don't learn this quickly, I'm going to be punished. Okay? If I don't get it the first time, again, let's talk about my culture. My culture and the time that I grew up were horrible teachers of the things they were trying to teach. And it's something that I talk with a lot of people in my generation about now, which is telling someone to do something and telling them, showing them, or teaching them how to do something is not the same thing, yo. All right? Well, I told you to clean the floor. You didn't tell me what to clean it with, My mom and I, before she passed, we laughed so hard at those paradoxes that we had when I was young. My mom would always tell me to clean up the living room. Okay, but she practically lived in the living room because we didn't have that many rooms in our houses. And we had 5 people in the house. And 3 of them were elders, so they needed their own. Okay? So it's, well, I told you to do this. Yeah, but you didn't teach me how to do it. I don't know how to do what you're telling me how to do. And my mom's paradox was clean up the living room, but don't touch her stuff. But her stuff was the way that the living room was getting messed up. So in order to clean, I had to touch her stuff, and she couldn't teach me how to clean up without touching her stuff. So no matter what I did, I was going to be in trouble. No matter what I did. So what was my solution? I just went outside. I was going to get my butt kicked either way, because she told me to do something but didn't tell me how to do it, didn't look at what it took to do it. Okay? And even now, I get on people's asses all the time because when folks see that I'm going through a hard time, they tell me to do things that work for them without looking at the fact that my life is different from theirs. Okay? Like, oh, you just got to go out there and get a job, and it's like, dude, getting a job has a whole lot of factors that have to do with what a lot of other people think. Well, you shouldn't worry about what people think of you. I got to worry about what they think of me if I'm asking them to give me a job, And I'm like, tell you what, let me give you my skin color, my height, and my zip code. And you tell me whether or not you can just go out there and get a job. I'll be real with you guys. I live in the hood. And there are not very many jobs here. Let alone many jobs that are full-time and that pay more than minimum wage. Okay? And when it comes to going to Westwood, Century City, all the places with the responsible jobs, when they see my address, they don't want to hire me. For years, when I was in Orange County, California, don't live there if you can help it, I didn't have a driver's license or a car. And I wasn't getting work because the people giving the jobs didn't trust the bus. So it's like, I don't trust that you're going to get here on time. After a few years, I found out it was because I was black, like I always said, but people around me didn't want to call that a thing. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that isn't taken into consideration by other people who tell me just to do stuff. So when it comes to learning, I get triggered by that type of stuff. But when it comes to the things that I want to learn, or that I've chosen to learn, that is the place where it becomes my responsibility to experience the triggers, but to learn anyhow, to focus and concentrate anyhow. Okay? How do we do those things? Well, like I said, with the concentration thing, my method is when I get distracted by 100 things, to take 3 seconds to recognize those 100 things and literally go zen. Whatever, not my business, not my problem. I'm here to do this. Okay? Now, like I said, I have just said something that's very simple, but it's not easy. However, though it's not easy at first, with practice of the other things that are going around, do not have a bearing on what I'm doing right here, right now. The more we practice those phrases, the easier it becomes to focus. Okay? And again, I've got trauma myself related to that, because I was expected to have the expert results before I was given direction or time to practice it. All right? Now, that second point, the how trained I am in learning. I'll leave that for the last when it comes to solutions, because everything I'm talking about in regards to these points, guys, are the skills that we practice in order to become better at learning. Okay, all of this is about tearing down those walls. All right? But the trauma that is related to the act of learning, I will tell you flat out, and I was just on the phone with a very good friend of mine about these things, they don't have the same weights on their shoulders, but they do have similar ones to apply. All right, so let's call this anecdotally tested. Some of the traumas that I have in regards to learning stuff and teaching, okay, is if I'm not 100% about this, I won't have credibility. If I don't have credibility, no one who looks like me will have credibility. The people I'm teaching don't trust me enough to know what I'm talking about to learn, so they keep challenging and they keep testing, not because they're trying to learn what I have to teach, but they are trying to prove that I don't know, to protect themselves from feeling bad for having a hard time. Okay, I've seen this 100 times. When I was teaching martial arts and dance, so many people tried challenging me on what I was teaching them because I wasn't in the line doing it with them. I was on the side making sure that their form was proper. And I always had one of those rebels who I love. I love the students that challenge me, going, well, we don't see you doing it. And I'd be like, now let's do this on beat. Now I don't want to hear your complaining. By the way, I smoke a pack a day and I'm not winded. Get to it. And that's literally me playing their game. And sometimes I have to do that. However, I already know what I'm doing. I've studied for years and years and years to do this. There is so much ego that gets in the way. Both the ego that could make me cocky and the lack of self-esteem that is challenging that ego. It's a storm in here, guys. Okay, but how do I get past that when I'm learning? Well, I think it was back in 2005. I was talking to a friend of mine. He was a decent writer, but he had decided to enroll in a writing course, right? And he was complaining the first 2 weeks of the writing course. Now, the writing course was a college class, so it was only 2 days a week. Okay, so for the first 6 classes, he was like, he's just teaching us stuff that I already know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I get your frustration. Now, let me ask you 2 questions. Number 1, does your teacher know that every person in that room already knows all that stuff? Well, I don't know what he's thinking. So you don't know whether or not your teacher knows this. And second, if you already know everything that you think this teacher has to teach, why are you taking their class? And he's like, I did sign up for his class because a lot of people said that they got some good stuff out of it. So maybe I should be patient to let him give me what I went there for in his time. And I'm like, exactly. He's like, dude, why don't you teach? I'm like, because I hate I hate administration and I hate parents. So yeah, that's a thing. You know, my great grandmother used to call it so busy knowing everything you can't learn nothing. All right. And that ties directly into trauma. Okay. I know so many people that approach every situation feeling like they have to prove that they already know something, even when they're learning. I know. Look, I get it, but I understand you, but, and I'm like, shut up. All right, let me steel man this. If you get it, tell me what I mean. And very rarely do they ever tell me what I mean. But they're so busy defending that they know stuff, and that comes from the trauma of being told that you're stupid all the time. You know, like I said, I grew up in the hood, but I have a lot of friends that grew up in the suburbs. And one of the things that we have in common are, as children, the adults in our lives, be they teachers, parents, friends' parents, other adults in the neighborhood, everybody was calling us stupid all the time. That's just a side effect of Generation X and millennials. You know, what do you know? You're stupid. You're too young too. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So when we come against that, how do we get past that trauma? We have to ask ourselves the question, do I actually know, or am I afraid of not being good enough to learn this? You know, like what am I protecting? You know, and that's a real tough one, guys. You know, getting through the trauma in order to accomplish a goal, it's simple on its face. You know, when I was growing up, I learned a phrase. Fear, F-E-A-R, is false evidence appearing real. All right? False evidence appearing real. Fear. All right? What does that mean? That means that we're afraid of something that doesn't exist in three-dimensional space. It's just an idea. That's all. We have false evidence that's substantiating a preconceived notion. So when it comes to our trauma, the thing that caused our trauma was real when it happened, but it is currently in the past. Okay? Just like Rafiki hitting Simba with a staff, it's in the past. But what is important is that you learn from the past. And what's even more important is to be aware of what you have learned. Okay? When I interact with people I'm trying to teach, I do my best to be reassuring of, dude, I'm not calling you stupid. I just want to make absolutely sure that you get this. And I keep asking if you have any questions because I want to answer them. And I'm trying to show you that I'm a safe person to ask questions to. I don't expect you to know, and I don't expect you to fully understand this upon it being explained to you the first time. I had a lot of teachers in my life, be they teachers in school or family members, that had that expectation. And it's an unfair expectation to have of anyone you're trying to teach, and a very unfair expectation to have of yourself, guys. Very unfair expectation to have of yourself. Okay? Again, I'm saying this as a musician. The number one thing that non-musicians expect from musicians is to hear a song for the first time and be able to recreate it stereo perfectly. I dare you to contradict me on that. I dare you. Okay. And the fact that I'm a bass player, oh my God. I can't tell you how many people expected me to be able to play guitar lines, specifically shred solos, on my instrument that is literally an octave deeper. So they wanted a recreation of a Steve Vai guitar line on an instrument that's an octave deeper with two fewer strings. It is literally impossible to make it sound exactly the same. Okay? But you're a musician. Yeah, you're a musician, so you should be able to hear this once and play it. Where are you getting this from? You know what I mean? It's this mythology of stuff, and that can cause a whole bunch of drama. You know. So, with that kind of thing, how do we get past that trauma? And the trauma that can stand in the way is just that, false evidence appearing real. Understanding that the situation that you're in is probably not the same one that you were in. Or you are in that situation and you might actually be strong enough to withstand it. Okay? I've been in a lot of places where people didn't expect black people in general to do it, and they put this weight upon me to represent every person who looks like me to do that. Okay? Oh, black people are into motorcycles? Oh, dude, black dudes like bikers? Oh, dude, black dudes play heavy metal? I'm like, shut up. I don't know if every black person does, but this one does. Okay? You over there. I don't know if every woman does, but that woman does. You know? Like, dag nabbit, let me be an individual. And that's what you expect from me, right? You know? So, but when that stuff gets internalized, the way that we do that kind of thing to ourselves, because all of us have internalized biases that actually are biases against ourselves. Every single one of us does. Okay? I have internalized anti-blackness. Every woman I know has internalized misogyny. Every LGBTQ person I know has internalized phobias that they fall under the purview of. It's just part of living in America in the late 20th century and the 21st century as to what we are now. It is not a character flaw. Or should I say it is not a character defect. It is simply a flaw. Okay? Now that I've got all that stuff, again, these traumas, how do we get past them? In the moment, recognize where we are and what we're doing. Okay? It really is that simple. Okay? I need to take a breath sometimes and think, even if this person thinks I'm an absolute idiot, I've got 3 undergraduate degrees in college. I've helped raise 7 to 8 kids, and I do my best in my daily life to make life better and a little clearer for as many people as I can do with my experiences and my understanding of it, which means I'm not bad, I'm not stupid, and I'm not cruel. That is the truth. The observable, provable truth. All right? Not just the facts, but the truth. So, if I don't get the equation between the defense of the Chaos Hellbringer that I'm shooting at versus my weapon's ballistic skill to know what I need to roll to damage, I'll get it eventually. All right? And real talk, I take that into my teaching. Okay? I taught someone yesterday how to play chess, and they kept asking me how the pieces moved. And guess what? I kept answering, because they'll get it eventually. You know, they will totally get it. All right. Now that other point, the preconceived notion of what the thing is. All right. When I sat down to teach someone Crisis Protocol or Grimdark Future or Warhammer 40K or whatever, a lot of people have a preconceived notion of what the game is, how it's going to be fun, and what is going to happen in it. I understand. Okay? And the thing I try and let them know before and during, is that all the stuff that you saw on YouTube and in previous media that set that expectation, that will come in time. All right. Certain things will come easier. Certain things will have more difficulty. Real talk. In my time in martial arts, it took me forever to get a jumping, spinning back kick. However, a butterfly kick took to it really quickly. Okay. Now, when I say I took to it really quickly, I learned how to do it really quickly. Did I learn when to do it and how to do it effectively? Yeah, it took a little while, but I was able to do it. It looked impressive. It looks even better when I do it with fire. No, I'm not going to do that on camera. It takes way too much to set all that stuff up. Okay. But the more I practiced, the more it came. And then one day I finished a whole form with a sword on fire. And I'm like, who did that? You know, an even bigger case that I can relate to you about was when I first sat down with my bass guitar to learn the Moving Pictures album by Rush. All right. I did it. And it was work. Okay. And fact of the matter is, I still haven't because I can't play YYZ perfectly. Okay. But I remember when I sat down to learn that album, it was on, if you guys are younger, we had these things called cassette tapes, and you would put it in, you would push play. But if you wanted to go back to a certain point, you had to push the button and rewind the tape, and you had to do it like 100 times before you knew exactly how far to push it back. It was interesting. And the way that I did it was I put my tape player on the other side of the room, and I would pick up my bass and I would try and play. Okay. And every time I made a mistake, I would have to put my bass down, walk across the room, and start the tape all over again. And when I pushed play on the tape, I had to run back to my bass and pick up the bass in order to start when the song started. It was a thing. But I remember one day, it came on the radio when I was just noodling, and then I played it from beginning to end. I played Tom Sawyer from beginning to end, including the bass solo that's in the middle of the song. And I'm like, when did I get this? You know, the same thing happened when I was trying to learn how to play 2112. And what does that mean? It's something that I bring up on the show all the time. Expertise is something that sneaks up on us. And we have to trust that we will get to the place that we think it will. We just won't get there when we think we do, or when we think we should. Okay. I equate this to when I was young. And if you're lucky enough to still live in the house that you grew up at, especially if you grew up in the 80s, you have that wall with all the marks. Okay. So there was a wall, specifically a door jamb, that most of us have if you grew up in the times that I did, where we would stand by the door jamb and somebody would draw a line to show how tall we were. And that thing never got clean. Okay. And every 3 months or every summer or something, the line would get a little higher and a little higher and a little higher so that we knew whether or not we had a growth spurt. But here's the thing. And I say this on the show all the time. I didn't feel myself becoming the 6'4" that I am, except for one summer, and that was different. But other than the very painful summer of 1990, I didn't feel any other growth. I just put my pants on one day and I saw a whole bunch of ankle. I tried, and as adults, let's face it, we don't realize when we put on the after 40, 30 pounds. Okay. We just know that one day our clothes don't fit. One day we get more tired than we used to. Or one day that thing that we've been trying to do is a lot easier. If you're a musician, that song that you've been trying to play becomes slower. It just happened. Okay? And it's a matter of building up the trust to know that one day the way that we perceive things will actually be. It's just a matter of movies and TV in the 1980s ruined us with the montage. I know that Rocky had a montage. I know that Daniel had a montage. But one thing montages of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s were bad at was tracking how much time it took in that montage. Old montages used to have like a little calendar and it would like lose days and all that stuff. It was so kind of cool, you know. But most people don't know that the entire story of Godfather 1 took place over 13 years. Spit down went down the wrong spot. So the real talk on that, guys, is to understand that the preconceived notion of what we're learning is true, but it is not quick. Okay? We'll get there. And will we know when we get there? Sorry, we won't. Okay? We'll only know that we're there when we stop for a minute and look back at where we were when we started. Okay? For you guys out there that paint miniatures or draw, okay? The next time you're creating something new, compare it to the oldest thing that you have. All right? I don't care if it's a YouTube video, a miniature you're painting, an illustration you're doing, a sketch that you're doing, a piece of poetry that you're writing today, an old short story that you wrote. And when I'm talking oldest, I'm talking 10 years ago. Okay, 5 years ago. All right? Heck, even 2 years ago before you enrolled in that class. And take a look at the differences between then and now, and you'll see that you're much closer to what you expected now than you were then. And trust that. Trust that process. Okay? And finally, how trained people are in learning. Well, guess what, y'all? And this is real. Okay? Real talk. When you practice these other three things, sitting with the trauma that you have in regards to learning and realize that however real the circumstances that caused your trauma was, you're not there anymore, and back then is not right now. When you trust that how you conceive it will eventually happen, and when you are open to multiple ways of learning and willing to practice, you will have exercised and trained in how to learn. Okay? Dead serious. Okay? These are the things that you can do. Now, understand this. I want to get back to that preconceived notion. That does not mean if you pick up a trumpet today, you will be Miles Davis. Not the way it works. I will probably never be as good a painter as Dana Howe. I am definitely no Michelangelo or Van Gogh. Okay? As a musician, I'm not Miles Davis. I'm not Victor Wooten. I am not Paul Simon or Elvis Costello. Okay? As a writer, I am absolutely no Frank Herbert or Robert A. Heinlein. All right? I'm me. I'm Solar Gray. And however good I think something will be, probably will not add up to what it actually will be. I don't put in the time and the effort to become outstanding at anything. And in my middle-aged, I've really stopped trying to be in circles that expect outstandingness in order for me to be included. Okay? Or in the words of the late, great Groucho Marx, I wouldn't join any club that would have me as a member or have that me as a member. Okay? But I am absolutely fine with how I am and how I learn and how I'm willing to learn. And in the times and places that I'm not, I have to ask myself the question, if I'm not fine with this, am I willing to do what it takes in order to get there? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. But overall, I will say this. In regards to what we talk about and deal with on this channel, these are hobbies. They do not have any bearing on whether or not I can eat. Okay, actually they do because it's my job, but y'all get what I mean. So the how important is it question is really big. Not everything, and this is me addressing the traumas that a lot of people have. What we interpret as Americans, especially Generation X, the lesson that we interpreted about Japanese culture does not apply and never have applied to them, nor does it ever apply to us. And that lesson is, everything that you do is a representation of who you are. Let that go. Just let it go. Okay? And I'm talking to the perfectionists out there, or those who have been harmed by narcissism. All right? You are not a failure if you're bad at flying helicopters but good at chess. All right? This notion of if you're not absolutely perfect at everything, again, tied right back to that trauma when it comes to learning. No, you're going to be bad at everything that you first start off with. Sorry. With stuff that you're great with, you're going to have downturns. I'm sorry. It happens. Peaks and valleys. That statement exists for a reason. Sometimes you are going to be on it and in the zone. And other days, maybe because of lack of sleep, maybe because of family problems, maybe because of muscle soreness, maybe because of lack of iron, you're not going to be great that day. It's going to happen. In the stuff that we do, the dice come up funny for everybody from time to time, y'all. Okay, Play on Tabletop, one of my favorite channels, has a saying, dice tell stories. Sometimes your dice going to be hot, sometimes they're not. Okay, we're not going to be God tier or what we consider God tier at everything or anything that we do 100% of the time. That's not how it goes. In the words of Avon from The Wire, man, how you never going to be late? How you never going to make a mistake? That's not going to happen. Okay? We are all going to make errors. We are all going to have bad days. We are all going to mess something up. That will not determine who we are or our quality. The thing that comes closer to describing those things is what we do in relation to it. One of my dearest friends tells me that she keeps me in her life because I am always trying. I'm always trying to get that extra 2 inches further. You know, I make mistakes. I fall down, but I never give up. I always get up and I always keep pushing forward. You know, sometimes I get up and I ask myself the question, am I pushing forward in the proper direction? And am I doing so in the best way that I can with what I have to work with? But I always keep pushing forward. Okay. So I don't have that expectation of, or how can I put it? I live in stories, and every plot comes with the idea of but and therefore. Okay. Every single one. You want to go to the store and get an apple? Yeah, go to the store and get an apple. I try and go to the store and get an apple, but a monsoon hits. And therefore, I may have to take shelter. Okay? Or I want to go get the apple, but the monsoon hits, therefore I take shelter. And then after the shelter comes around, I get back to the store, but the store's been struck by lightning. Ah! You know what I mean? You know? However, I'm always trying to push forward to get that apple. You know, I don't go, stupid, I should have checked the weather before I left. Or, I should do a 28-point inspection of my vehicle every morning when I get out of bed to go to work. Who does that, guys? Real talk. Less than 1% of the population. All right? And again, I have lived a life where people with power who are exercising power over me tells me that that's the stuff I need to do. You know, it's like, I'm sorry I'm late for work. The bus almost got hit by a train. Well, you should have got up earlier and caught an earlier bus. Well, I catch the first bus out of the lot. Well, you should move closer. Well, you should pay me enough to move closer. You see what I mean? You know, it's really easy to get caught up in those traumas because so many people in modern society are trying to dodge accountability, or they're so busy trying to win the argument that they're missing the point of what the argument is about. Okay? I get into it with my friends all the time because I give way less of a crap about whose fault it is than I do about fixing the situation. It's that simple. You know, I don't care whose fault it is that the glass fell off the counter. I care about getting the broken glass off the floor. All right? But a lot of people are so traumatized about things being their fault that they will argue to the grave about whose fault it is before they pick up a broom at all. You know, and that comes from trauma. And when we get caught up in those traumas, especially when it comes down to learning, all that happens is that we don't learn. We don't grow. We don't clean up the mess. All right? So I want you guys to consider these things and share this with your friends. If you guys want to say something about that and be like, you know what? This guy is just wrong. All right? I get that. Well, all you got to do is pull up your email, put in a little thing that says to or CC, and type in backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK @gmail.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter, or, you know, the site formerly known as Twitter, at Back in the Deck. You can reach out to me on Instagram, check out what we've been posting on all that stuff at Back in the Deck. And if you're on the Clock app, check out the stuff over on the Clock app at BIDPY. That's BidP. Also reach out over on Facebook. Join the group Deckers on the Book. And of course, join our Discord. All of these things are free. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like. Maybe share it with somebody that's going through a couple of things. You know, school's about to start, so this whole learning part, you never know. It might actually come in handy. And I might have had a reason for choosing this subject here and now. I don't know. And also, if you guys get any value out of what we do, subscribe here on Twitter, on Twitch. Too many twas. Using Jeff Bezos's money, using your Prime subscription, or in addition to, leave a donation right here, like, you know, buy me can of coffee, you know, over with our PayPal thing, or even join the Patreon. That would be awesome. Or if you're like me and drink about a gallon of coffee a day, that is no exaggeration, head on over to our TeePublic thing. Maybe pick up a t-shirt, maybe pick up a coffee cup. Hey, coffee cups. And all the links are right here in the chat. If you are watching on YouTube or anything like that, they should be down there in the description. And of course, I want to thank all you guys for being here. Knights of G, thank you. I hope to see you again here on Monday. We're doing stuff, letting you guys know that this is the weekend of all the conventions. So Strategicon is happening over by LAX if you're in the SoCal area. Long Beach Comic Con is happening at the Long Beach Convention Center. I will probably be at both this weekend, having interviews, getting footage, maybe doing some live casting from the road. We'll see. All right, but thank you guys for being here. Thanks for reaching out, and take what I said, all that jazz. And of course, if anybody tells you that you can't like what you like or have the hobbies you have because of your circumstances of birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, neurodivergencies, or your budget, because anybody that's ever been to one knows that the trailer park is always walking distance from the hood, you tell those people to take those cards they're trying to play on you and put them back in the deck. This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys for being here, and we will see you next time on the dark side of the room.